So welcome to ROCKIT Coffee Talks. My name is Sharuna, and today with my special guest Audrius, we are going to deep dive into the topic, unlocking the data of employment.
Hi Sharuna, thanks for inviting me to this hub I go to for the last 3 years.
And so at least a great opportunity to come and have some coffee and share some insights about what you guys developing. And when I was thinking how to introduce you, I looked at the history when you joined our hub. So you're already a member for nearly 3 years, but then you joined our hub as a VR guru, creating lots of entertainment and educational projects. Then somehow you turned into this AI master and managed to build a massive crowd of artificial intelligence enthusiasts and build a separate community within this hub. So that was really impressive. Also, in the meantime, you became a NATO Science and Technology Organization board member. How this happened in your journey? And today we are meeting you as a co-founder and CPO of a great startup, Argyle. So I'm not sure if that's a good introduction of all the activities that you cover.
All the introductions are good, you know. We all do a few different things and then end up doing something that works.
So in my head, you're a man with many hats on his head, and somehow you master them all.
Yeah, I hope not too many. Yeah.
Not too many at this point.
Yeah.
So as we're meeting today to deep dive, to basically go deeper into the topic of Argyle, so can you introduce what it's all about?
Yeah, so Argyle is a company that allows other companies, which are clients, to request their customers to share their payroll data with them. We're an aggregator essentially who has this SDK they can put into their product, their website, or their app, and they can ask their end users, hey, would you like to share your payment information on where you work information with us? I mean, the reason companies need this is to provide things such as employment verification to make sure somebody works somewhere and they earn a certain amount of money, or to provide their insurance services or any other services they come up with. We essentially enable that data transfer from the person that has their data locked somewhere to the company that needs to use that data.
So what are the current challenges that such a solution is so much needed in the market?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is the fact that most people have a vast amount of information that's useful for other people, but it's all locked in their HR payroll accounts. So as an example, in the United States, where we mainly operate, if you work somewhere, it doesn't matter where, you always have a login to a place where you can find all your pay slips and payment information in. So that is useful information when you want to prove somebody that you work somewhere, or how much money you earn, or how creditworthy you are. But all that information is just available in that one system. There's no easy way to get it outside of there. And if you worked at a few different places, or if you're a flexible worker or a contractor who does multiple jobs, it's going to be really hard for you to sort of prove that you do that and share the information with anyone. And the users own their data, but there's no easy way for them to get it out. Like, they can do screenshots and download PDFs, but that simply doesn't scale. So we came in here, and my co-founder Shmuel came up with this idea in his previous startup about how people could use such a system, because they already have this information filled out. So even if they're applying for a new job or something, why do they need to fill it out again? They could just essentially agree to share that. Yeah, and we started with that idea when we met, and we started building prototypes to see if it would be possible to enable this. And we currently support about 25% of the US workforce market. So if you work with, and pretty much anywhere in the United States, you can come in and share that information with somebody.
So Argyle was originally established in 2018. So it's interesting to hear how was the whole journey for you within these 2 years? How the product evolved itself?
So yeah, of course. So I think we started with the same grand vision we have today, but we definitely evolved throughout the 2 years. At first, we started tackling the contractor and the flexible worker problem. So we started with adding support for gig economy companies. So if you work at Uber, or you drive for Lyft, or you deliver food, Bolt or Instacart, or whatever, you want to be able to sort of show how much you make. Because anyone can register for those services, but some people make a living there, and others just occasionally deliver where's your parcels? So to prove that he works somewhere, there was no easy way to do that. So we started integrating those services first. And then after that, we started adding all the flexible workplaces, like people that large retailers who come in and do shifts. And then after that, we started focusing on like the largest HR, HR companies that enable other companies to sort of capture that information for just traditional work. So we currently expanded into the traditional work area, and we're growing out into that. So that was sort of the biggest change. And throughout the journey, we understood and learned how interesting, difficult, and thoughtful you have to be to sort of achieve this.
But it's really interesting how you approach the program. It's like the problem itself, as currently, as you mentioned, the data is held within the companies, payroll companies, but then you are getting through the doors from user perspective and getting the access by his consent.
Yeah, essentially, we see ourselves as being on the right side of history. We work with the user itself. The user gives us a consent. So we could be doing this with pen and paper, write down numbers and pass them on in letters. But we automate this process so it's faster for both the user and everyone else involved, and it becomes useful. So yeah, this is definitely something we built as a secure system that allows us to work with every user and get their consent and then share this information. So yeah, I think if you look at the overall sort of market of data and people's data, I think this is the trend that's becoming very, very prevalent in all the industries. So we work with HR payroll data specifically, right? Company data. But if you look at banking, they started doing this first and use the same model. If you look at accounting and health data, everyone's starting to apply the same model because we don't live in a perfect world where everybody has a super useful APIs we could use. So we have to make those things ourselves.
Well, we are getting to the point where the APIs are evolving, so great to hear you're already on the right track. But to talk about the issue itself, and the gig economy is growing and this on-demand workers are more widespread. Recently I found on the Harvard Business Review that 1/3 of US corporate workers in companies like Google, Amazon Flex, they are already not employed by those companies, and they are freelancers, contractors, and so on.
Yeah.
So do you see this even getting in a more trending position than it is right now?
Yeah, we're always going to have traditional work, but as people move to work from more different places, as they travel around the globe, as they work from home, we see that more and more people choose to work as individual contributors, as contractors, as flexible workers. Mainly because we were seeing people take more different careers and also try different things out, and they value their flexibility, their ability to do things in different ways. So I think if you look at that sort of market overall, not necessarily concerning what we do, that's definitely on the rise, and we're probably going to see more and more of that happening.
So your company as well, Argyle Teams, employs a lot of people worldwide. We'll get back to that a bit later, but it's interesting that you're creating a product that's very much relevant to your own team.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we started this off as a remote-first company. We definitely were inspired by successes of GitLab, other companies that are fully remote. There are quite a few really successful companies now that don't have one established office, that manage their things and processes in a different way that allows them to have a more performant, faster team that's distributed. And I honestly believe that's the future. There's no real reason that people have to be crammed in one open space office.
Yeah.
And the current realities of Corona, COVID, and all that, like this just has proven to be an immensely advantageous place for us to be in. We started Argyle 2 years ago when this thing wasn't really a problem.
There.
Yeah. And I mean we built out the team with currently members in like 15 different countries. And when COVID came, we obviously felt the overall effects, but like team-wise and work-wise, nothing really changed. People stopped, I guess, going out much or spending as much time outside. But like our work routines and processes were already in place, allowing them to perform pretty, effectively in that environment as well.
Awesome. So I just want to remind for the viewers who are watching our conversation today, you can ask the questions, and I have a special device to read them out loud. Yeah. So maybe some burning questions from the team, having their CPU right in front of the camera. So we are ready for your interactions as well. So it's really surprising as you have recently closed a second investment to Argyle, practically over one period of 1 year. So if I remember well, in 2019, around September, you closed 2.6 million seed round, and just last week you announced 20 million Series A round. So how did you guys make it?
Well, that's what decent startups have to do, I guess.
Okay.
we have, we need resources to be able to achieve our mission, our current mission and trajectories, being able to work with every place you can work at in the United States, to integrate every workplace available. And we're working hard towards that, and that's why we need those resources to get into that position. I think the investors valued our sort of track record, tech record, what we achieved in a year, and that allowed us to, raise the money even in these challenging times. Mm-hmm. So now, now we're focused on how to best use these resources to achieve those goals we make. And I tried not to mention this too many times, but we are hiring quite heavily everywhere in the world. So it doesn't matter if you live in Europe, South America, if you have the right skills, check out our AngelList profiles for who we're looking for, and come and join us. We'll go try to do this mission together.
Yeah, we talked with Audrius before the call that currently you have raised a lot of money, and now you have a lot of work to do with it. So one of them is getting the right people on board. Yeah. But I'm interested in what you mentioned, that startups need to raise money, and here in the Lithuanian market, we hear some struggles finding the right investors, or convincing them to invest more. So how did the whole funding round felt for you, like an insider?
I think that despite the fact we're in really troubled times, there's always a need for finding good startups for investors. They have their work to do, their businesses to find good startups to invest in, and they work really hard to do that. And their job becomes more difficult in these times as well, because less people choose to take risks, less people choose to go out and try and do their own things. But I think those who do and those who can succeed in these times become sort of an easier target for those who are looking to invest into somebody. So despite the fact there's obviously a global sort of, troubled times globally happening, I think the investment market is as alive as ever. And I think, like maybe certain countries like the US have more focus towards like hyper growth, finding the right startups and investing into them despite the times being more tough. So yeah, I don't know. I think if you have the right product market fit, I think this will work out even better for you if you're online. We can already see that a lot of businesses who especially help build e-commerce sites for traditional businesses. Their stock and their performance sort of quadrupled over this troubled period. So there's definitely going to be some opportunities that startups can work on these times.
And talking about investors that you have attracted, so it's not one, but a couple of funds that put their forces together, but one of them is Bain Capital Ventures. And in their portfolio, they have companies like Shopping.com, LinkedIn, Jetcom, SurveyMonkey. So having such investors on board, what does it give for a startup?
Well, I think it's definitely very useful. I mean, the network that Bain Capital has is quite immense. Their experience in various different startups that exited over the years is also quite immense. So I think we're really sort of lucky to work with them, and have a great relationship with them. And it's definitely something that allows us to, beat the competition and do much better than we do otherwise. So we're really happy to have such great partners there.
But how close are your relations? Are they stepping into decision making?
Well, I think an investor's job is to make their life as easy as possible. So they try to help wherever possible, wherever we need help from them. I think it really depends on different funds and their management style, but we can definitely say that it's been, very fortunate to work with a fund like Bain Capital. And recently, our round was joined by F Prime and Bedrock. So, I think these are definitely interesting times. We have a really exciting group of angel investors as well, and we'll use their resources to their best ability to be able to, scale as fast as we can.
Mm-hmm. How do you think, if you were making the startup in Europe, how fast would you be able to raise this money that you just raised?
Yeah, I think Europe is a little bit more slower when it comes to risk tolerance, and the venture market in Europe is definitely not as mature. I think if you look at the most successful startups in Europe, they still raise money in the United States, like Spotify or Skype or other examples. So the reality is that the internet is global, and doesn't matter where you're based, you're essentially competing with everyone everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we should really look at this as a global problem. Europe's internet companies sell in the United States and elsewhere as well. So I think every startup should look at these opportunities and explore them on both sides of the Atlantic. Because at the end of the day, each company who's going to be successful is going to compete globally. So we should probably try to raise money globally and act globally from the very start.
But do you have a lot of competition in the US market itself?
Yeah, but you have to be the best in the world either way. Like, it's very hard for you to attract venture capital money if your premise is to stay close within one market. So I think being able to be global from the very start is something everyone should do and try to do. I think it's definitely a mistake to try to focus on the local market first and then go worldwide, because you never know if the lessons you learn actually apply globally. So yeah, then I would always say, try to build stuff out that can work globally and aim at that first, because it will help you later.
Okay. What's also very interesting about Argyle is your work processes, and if we still continue on the investor side, you chose a very interesting method using Notion, a platform that's mainly known as a tool for managing your team or your work tasks. You dedicated this tool basically for managing your investors' relations. So why such choice, and what advantages did it bring for you comparing with other startups?
I have to admit, I'm a bit of a Notion fanboy. Shmuel, our CEO, introduced it to me more than 2 years ago, and I think, just for those who haven't tried it, Notion.so is people call it a note-taking app, but it's the way I say it. Imagine if Microsoft Access and Dropbox Paper had a kid. That's what Notion is. It's a beautiful note and database system, and you can do anything. So far, we've been pretty successful at getting rid of Jira, Asana, Trello, and all the other tools we used before, and just sort of focusing on making our own custom processes within Notion. Notion allows you to have Trello-like boards or Kanbans and databases, and you can reference them in different notes. So we just I think everyone in our team, especially the executive team, were tired of making slides and working with subpar tools, and seeing a tool that works well, is fast, and it's actually fun to use. We decided to give it a try, and we had like a month of a trial period to see if this could even work. But it worked out great. I mean, we run everything in Notion currently. We have this, I call this fractal Kanban, like a deeply nested Kanban of strategic view and projects within them. We can reference those anywhere in our docs and notes, and and we ended up doing our pitch deck in Notion as well, because it's such a more powerful tool, because you can share it as a website, and you can make nested content and hyperlinked content, and it doesn't have to be split into cards. And I mean, I feel like slides are sort of the legacy tool of the 20th century, but the first people had paper slides, right? And then the mindset they had was always in these square pieces of paper because of the screen sizes. But like, as we go into this, age of the internet, I think we should probably get rid of slides and think broader about this. And Notion is definitely the right first step to that direction. So, our pitch deck is now public as an example of what we used. So others could try and do the same thing or get inspired there. I think we were able to put much more information and display it meaningfully there. So yeah, I think that worked out pretty well for us, and we're definitely happy with what Notion does so far. The only thing I would say is Notion is if anyone is listening for Notion, please enable your API access, because that would actually enable us to integrate with GitHub and other tools, which would be awesome.
We'll try to pass your
Yeah.
wishes for Notion,
Yeah.
but as well, that's your approach as an innovation-driven company. How did investors find it? I'm sure they used those PowerPoint slides, and then using a specific tool to go deeper into details of the company they are looking to invest.
I think, I think the investors are looking for interesting businesses to invest in, and you can bring them a bunch of napkins. If you have a good idea and a good track record, they'll look at the napkins you bring in. So I think we have something slightly better than napkins, which contain a lot of information, and I think, that was taken at face value. I don't think anyone loves the tool. Should they need the best tool to do the job, right? And we chose another tool, but it seems to be more useful that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to encourage all the viewers, if you have any questions, don't wait till the end. Shoot them right now, and I'll try to involve them into my questions. And I would like to talk more about the team that you have, and we briefly talked about it in the beginning. And it's interesting that many companies during these days in COVID times pass through really shocking times for them when they had to work from home, and you decided to build a completely remote team from day one.
Yeah.
So co-founders are also multinational, and it's interesting how you manage such team and deliver such a great results.
So I think first of all, there's a big difference between working from home and building an asynchronous company or a fully remote company. So I think we did the latter. And the difference between those things is that most businesses who found themselves needing to work from home ended up spending all their time in Zoom calls or video calls, which is not a great way to work. I mean, that's trying to replicate what you have in an office and an efficient regime and doing it online. What we tried to do from the day one is to work with this asynchronous model where you can hire people. We have people in Thailand, New Zealand, Brazil, Argentina, most of Europe, United States, right? So we have people all over the world. But we record all the company meetings so everyone can take time and participate in them, even if they could at the time. We make such processes which allows them to be an equal part of the business despite where they are at. The problems arise when companies have a headquarters and they try to have some teams remote, and those teams end up being treated as subpar, not have all the information. But when you're all fully remote, you decide that everything has to live in Slack and Notion. Everything you say and want to share with others has to be put into a documented place. Then you end up having a very different work dynamic. Not everyone needs to spend all their day in calls. Some developers who get up to speed and they're working, and they know what they're doing, they can put down the written updates, communicate with others asynchronously, and really do this sort of effectively and well. So it's all about your processes and how you organize work from the start, and just being comfortable with that. I think one of the key things that makes this work is extreme transparency. This isn't really a new sort of model. I think I started with some venture companies in the late 80s. But the idea is that you have to be super transparent about your sales targets, about what you work with, about performance, about failures, and just try and act on the transparency. And if you build that sort of culture from the start, then you can actually expect to be able to handle a multinational team across different countries. And we really try hard to hire the right people for the team. So we have to hire the right cultural fit, not only the technical fit. And the trust and the cultural bonds between people, if they work remotely, are the things that hold things together.
But hiring locally, is it a more challenging job than hiring locally?
I think again, any constraints you put on the system forces you to streamline all the processes. And I think we have streamlined the hiring process really well. We don't waste people's time with coding interviews, like live coding exercises. There are a lot of things that companies create as overheads to make themselves feel comfortable or to actually, make sure people have something to do. what we want is the most efficient way to get from point A to point B. So for us, like, we run a pretty lean team, and I think we have immense success in hiring globally and finding great talent that way. Because as you can imagine, like, most companies will find that soon, but all the best talent is not locked in one location. There are numerous people in different countries around the world who have great talent that we can now tap into compared to our competitors, for example.
So how do you think what your employees find the most exciting within Argyle, when you work with a team all remotely, sometimes, you can lack motivation, but it seems that, the dream and the development is very strong.
Yeah, I don't think working remotely makes people less motivated. I think actually what helps them is the fact that, we don't run a company where we microscopically look at every individual on their movements and count their hours. Like, we expect everyone to be performant, everyone to do and hit certain targets, right? But at the same time, we give people freedom to first own the thing they're building, second, choose how they work and when they work. If somebody's in Lithuania, if somebody's in Brazil, it doesn't mean they have to work their day hours. They can choose to work whatever hours they like. They can choose to travel if they can and do other things. So I think this sort of freedom and being respected and sort of seen as a human who can own his own work and coordinate how he works really motivates people. At least that's what we give back as feedback from the team as well. And then team within themselves really build camaraderie and communication and friendship, even though they're not at the same place. But I think the next 10 years will show us that things like that are overly overrated, and there are great companies like GitLab, Zapier, WordPress that are all remote, been remote for the last 10 years. We sort of pioneered this way forward, but like, there's going to be a lot more other companies doing that. So.
But I believe it's from what you mentioned, it sounds like a really perfect environment and the culture that you are trying to build, but the challenges with the pace and the rapid growth that you are expected to have and already in the steps doing this. So how do you yourself believe in building strong company culture during very fast growing times?
So I think, like, when you talk about company culture or remote teams, what you really have to talk about is sort of there's an overarching culture within there, obviously subcultures. So teams communicate mostly with their own teams. You end up with these microcosmos of different cultures. You do get that in normal companies, of course, especially when you outgrow a single floor and companies get multiple floors. So any sort of physical constraint or communication constraint or other group of people will let you, evolve like a microcosmos of your company culture. So the real challenge and the job to do in the remote company is sort of sync up those microcosmos of different cultures to make sure they're on the same page, understand what the business needs are. And there's some cross-team collaboration and communication we're doing and we're trying to do to enable that. So random chats with different people to allow you to communicate with people who might not have ever worked directly. Then like constant feedback, quantified feedback, like all the time about how people are feeling. Being transparent and clear about their goals. Like all these things definitely help. And I don't think we claim to know all the answers. And I think one thing we all agree on is that we reiterate our methods. If something doesn't work, we remove it, try something new. And I think we'll find a lot more new methods we'll have to adopt and we'll find useful as we scale. I mean, we're 45 or so people right now, quickly growing to 100 more. And, as the company scales, like we'll find a lot of new things that will be interesting to share. We definitely don't know everything just yet, but it's definitely, it seems to be a very fun, efficient, and interesting journey.
From the employee perspective, I believe it's pretty fun being one of the first employees and then seeing, how the company evolves, and as well getting more responsibilities with every new person joining the team. And we have a question from the audience from Gabriela, and the question sounds: could you please talk more about the competitive environment? We briefly talked about it, but I see there is more need for details in the employment data management. What are your largest competitors and how you differentiate yourself from them?
So, I think we can look at this from two perspectives. One perspective is there are a lot of companies that provide means to achieve, let's say, employment verification. So the biggest of them is called Equifax, that most people really know about. It's a company that uses very sort of traditional methods of employment verification. Usually they buy data from companies in the paper format, digitize it. They run more of a manual process to provide companies with this sort of employment verification. It's usually a couple of months data, and like we run on the sort of digital frontier here and try to innovate on this process and make it almost instant, right? So Equifax itself has a sub-business called the True Work Number. They make about $1 billion a year in the US alone, just from employment verification. So obviously, this is sort of the largest competitor in terms of like them doing the same thing we do. But then there are new services we're building which don't necessarily have all incumbent competitors, like direct deposit switching is one of them. So we not only provide read functionality for people's data, but with their consent, we can provide an update functionality, which means that if you're, let's say, a neobank and integrated with us, your users, when they open your app, you can ask them to switch where they get paid from their current workplace without needing to go in or talk to the HR department. You just log into their workplace, consent to the switch, and then we do this. So this has been a pretty new field, and we haven't really seen any big competitors in this for the last 2 years. And I think now with like the current sort of pace at which this is growing, we're seeing more and more companies thinking about how they could approach this. This is going to be a very interesting landscape for everyone. As we know now, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of hard work, and there are no easy shortcuts to build this up. So we'll see how that goes. But like talking about the industry landscape, there are large incumbents that sort of offer paper-based services like that. There are a lot of new players who are sort of too small and like they would like to get into this, but they're not there yet. So we have an interesting industry, leader position where we're trying to build something new out and at the same time lead the new market we're creating.
And also the new features that you developed. So at first it was to ensuring like financial stability for such workers, but then you realized it's not only about the economy, it's for the whole economy at some point. And job verification is also a very, very useful tool for many businesses. For example, if I was about to say I worked 5 years in Google and 2 at Amazon, what are the ways to check? You go on my LinkedIn profile, I can draw there the nicest picture, I can, my imagination can go wild there, but then you provide a tool for companies really to measure and track the data.
Yeah, because it's one thing to claim you have done something, it's another thing to sort of prove the fact that you are employed somewhere else. And you can do that with a lot of papers and faxes and PDFs right now, but we provide a way for you to do this in a much easier way. And for companies to be able to ask for that in pretty much an instant fashion.
Awesome. So if we have more questions, I would like to get them on the screen. So don't be shy. But I have another very interesting question for myself about your team. You are the CTO yourself, and I know that your team is already joking about it, that majority of tech guys are from Lithuania. Now, before the call, you mentioned that the second biggest team most probably will develop in Brazil. But was this strategic step in the beginning, or more of a patriotic feeling that you're giving back to the community?
No, I think this is a pretty natural evolution of the fact that my biggest network is in Lithuania and the UK, and those sort of became the 2 biggest markets we started tapping people from. When you're growing fast, you need good people joining. If you know anyone good, I pretty much employed anyone good right now. So I think that naturally came to that. But actually, like out of 45 people, maybe only 10 or 15 people are technically Lithuanian, living in other countries as well. Like we have people from Latvia, Spain, Austria, Sweden, UK, Thailand, New Zealand, US, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, and I probably forgot some other countries, but like, this number is sort of growing, and before the COVID, we had people who were trialing around, so you couldn't really tell where they're from. So I think we're going to have a pretty nice global team that brings in a lot of sort of cultural diversity, a lot of interesting new experiences, from different countries and different perspectives. But yeah, it's we don't, have a preference or a choice. We would like to hire people from anywhere. We're just trying to find the best people we know from our network and outside sources, and get them going here.
But it was really interesting at some point, because on your team there are many people that were previous ROCKIT members working for one team or another, and somehow he really started picking the best people for his team, building this strong circle around yourself, and that was really inspiring in the first place, how you managed to get those people, to attract them, and that shows, I'm sure, the great leadership of yourself.
I think that shows that ROCKIT Rise before was definitely a good choice for me, because I ended up meeting a lot of these good people I wanted to work with. Like we, Sergey, our head designer, we met here a couple years ago, right? And he has been, he's literally the best designer around now. So it was really cool that we could convince him and invite him over to Argyle. We built the whole brand and design image we have. Like anything design related, it's his, achievement. So we're more than lucky to have him. And the same happened for a lot of other members. We sort of tried to get the best of ROCKIT and Rise here, definitely. But I would say, that also shows like the importance of such communities as ROCKIT, just to be able to meet and know all these people. I wouldn't know half the people I go from here if it wasn't for this place. So.
And it's interesting that you managed to convince those people. They were freelancers, those wild souls, very independent ones, and now more and more I hear it's quite nice to work for the company, to work with Audrius, to work with Argyle.
I think it's because we respect people's sort of freedom, ability to own stuff and work for themselves. Like we don't micromanage people. We really try to give them the responsibility and see them flourish that way. I really think that's the reason why we can hire people who sort of ran their own businesses, were freelancers before, or chose to not work in a corporate environment. We're trying to be effective and as humanly as possible in that sense.
And I believe they are also working with a product that really directly relates to them. Who they were in the beginning, or maybe still.
They understand the problem set in the product, for sure.
So summarizing a bit, as we have just a couple of minutes left, would you share, so what's your favorite thing about the company? You talk more about the team, about the pace, the innovation that it brings.
I think it's just the best place I worked at. We built it out together, founders, and it's been a really fun journey so far. I hope it stays that. It's just been it's been a rocket ship that was fun to be on, and it's a very exciting journey. I think the most interesting thing for me is actually innovating in the space of like building a remote company out. This is still, even though it's becoming a norm, it's still a new field in which you can find a lot of new ways to innovate around how humans interact, and that's really interesting.
And it's a great question to ask for a startup, but what's your prognosis for Argyle in like upcoming 5 years?
Well, our targets and what we aim for is to become like the de facto place you go to get integrated. If you want to enable your customers to share the payroll data, we want to get to 100% employment sort of coverage, being able to connect people from the big business and the small business and whoever works anywhere. So that's our big mission. I think we'll definitely get there sooner than 5 years from now on. And when we get there, we'll see what's next.
So you already covered majority of big businesses.
But like there's a huge, you can look at all the small retailers and everything else. Like our mission is to really make it so that anyone who works anywhere could use our product and share their data the way they see fit.
And you mentioned a couple of times that you are currently hiring, so it's a great audience to announce what kind of positions are open right now and what kind of talents are you looking for.
So we're hiring for a lot of software developers. We mainly look for people with great back-end engineering skills and people who have worked at amazing companies that scale fast. If you have API building experience, you have experience working with highly scalable APIs. Kubernetes-based infrastructure, or we have experience in API integrations and things like that, we'll definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn or check out our AngelList profile. That's all the sort of more all the job descriptions that are more elaborate and where what I'm doing right now, and just apply there. We're really happy to talk. We have a really efficient process to go through and hire people and talk to them. So please apply today, and we'll talk to you next week.
That's how fast the things go. I've heard that. So thank you very much, Audrius. We don't have more questions from the audience. I'm sure you're super easy, approachable in any kind of social media channel. So that's the way to go if you have additional questions or some opportunities I would like to join with you.
Yeah.
So it was really my pleasure to have the speaker right next to me, having this friendship for such a long time, and seeing yourself grow as a personality and growing such a nice business. It will be a great inspiration for other startups within the country and locally.
I have to say, Sherman and Rockit wouldn't be what it is without you, so I wouldn't have half the people I hired. So please bring more people into
it. We'll try to. So thank you very much. Have a lovely day, and see you during next calls.
Bye.